Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Road to Grandmaster series. This is episode number technically 49, but let's just say 49 and 50 combined, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to be showing you the last two games that I played in my fourth tournament back in action at the New York City GM Norm Round Robin Tournament. I'm also going to give you an update of where I am, obviously not home. I'm also going to tell you why I will be taking a break from competitive chess for about 2 months and what to expect for the Road to Grandmaster series in that time and when I return. I suppose I will start the video briefly touching on that. This tournament has obviously been a disaster, and it has left me with some actionable insights, but it has also left me with a level of confusion and uncertainty. Because the three tournaments that I played previously all went pretty okay. And I managed to overcome different amounts of adversity during those tournaments and ultimately succeed. In this one, everything went wrong in a variety of different ways. And I'm stuck looking for a reason. And if I cannot find a reason, I'm stuck looking for what's going to be next in the future. I will, of course, work hard. I will work on my openings. I'm going to do more calculation, practice, etc. And all of that is good. And I think part of it is honestly suffering a little bit from burnout. I'm only 28 years old, so maybe I don't always realize that if I travel somewhere and come back, it's okay. I think that I've adjusted and I think I'm fine. But between running this channel, between running Chessly, which is basically its own total separate entity, which is my educational platform, it's kind of difficult to also include two tournaments every single month. Now, the next thing that I have planned competitively is October 28th to November 2nd. I announced it on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. No one's ever going to call it X. On Twitter, I'll be playing Pia Kramling, the mother of Anna Kramling, in a match of classical rapid and blitz. So until October 28th, I will not be playing any competitions. I'm going to hibernate. I'm going to rest. I'm going to recover. And let's jump into the recap. We have this is the setup here because the mirror is just there and there's nothing I can do about it. You can obviously watch the games. I'm sure you will enjoy the analysis. But at the end, I will also circle back to why I'm in Paris. It's for the Speed Chess Championship. What to expect for the next few days on this channel. Going to be a lot of Magnus, Hans, Hikaru content. So I know you guys are all salivating. Like, you make fun of me for making Magnus, Hikaru, Hans content. You guys love that. You guys love it. You salivate at the thought. So, in the 8th round, I was playing against Igor Kovalchuk. Now, Igor Kovalchuk is a fascinating dude because he has a FIDE rating of 2,057. He was a last-minute replacement in this tournament because the person who was supposed to play in his spot got COVID. He replaced this person like, a day before the tournament. Igor Kovalchuk is a Ukrainian man in his 50s or something. He works as some sort of contractor. I think he does like painting, home contracting. He was winning in like 3 games that he was playing. He was completely winning against multiple people rated over 2,400. And he managed to lose those games. But I was like, yo, who is this mysterious 50-year-old former Soviet Union chess master who is obviously underrated and is not a 50... Dude, if 50-year-old 2000s don't play like this dude was a monster. I was watching his games and I was like, dude, this is so annoying that I have to play this guy. So I'm going to show you this game first. He opened up with e4. Of course, I played the Caro-Kann, right, every game. He played knight c3, so I was like, oh, is he going to play knight f3? But he ended up just playing d4. And I didn't prepare much at all before this game. I was 8 minutes late. I didn't think for 8 minutes on the first move. So knight c3, d5. He played d4. I took. And of course, I could have played bishop f5, which is the classical. But I wanted to play the Tartic hour, which is knight f6, takes. And He went c3, which is the main move. And in this position, the main move by far is castling. But something that I had looked at, because I was considering playing it against Chiron, mostly just to surprise him, it's not particularly special, is this move knight a6. Knight a6 is a weird move. You basically postpone castling, and the knight quickly gets to the center, and then you oftentimes actually advance your pawn here. It's a very peculiar way to play the Tartic Hour, but I found it quite fascinating when I was just researching it. And actually, Coach Nixon showed me this move, and was like, here's where I got it from, and you can take a look. So queen c2, knight c7, and now knight e2. And here black plays h5. And the point is that, I wanted to castle, but I couldn't because the pawn was hanging. But if I played g6, he would play bishop h6. Now I can't castle, and also he's going to castle queenside. So you play h5. And the idea is actually very easy. You just kind of walk your king to g7. And the engine always says it's like plus 0.5, but it's not the easiest plus 0.5 to handle. So I played h5, and I was like, okay, this is exactly what I want. I mean, the guy's obviously pretty strong, considering he's been beating like 3 of the players in this tournament. But I have him in, a Caro-Kann. I'm going to be quite satisfied and probably play my type of game. He played knight g3, which is definitely not a move. I mean, white should, castle or prepare to castle queenside at a minimum here. Knight g3, I didn't really understand, but it allows me to play h4. I kind of got that his point was to just come here, grab one of my bishops with his knight, and basically say, like, look, I don't care about your h-pawn, I have the 2 bishops. So he played knight f5, and actually right away, black is slightly better. And I kind of had a feeling, like, during the game, I was like, really? Because, the setup that I want to employ in the Tartic Hour involves pawns on the light squares, which is, I'm going to have a lot of them, and I figured I should get rid of this bishop, which is what I did. And then I played pawn to g6. So from the opening, I mean, the opening is a success. According to the computer, despite not having the bishop pair, and despite having a compromised pawn structure in the sense that I have doubled f-pawns, black is better. I mean, he goes bishop g4, I advance again, and he plays... This is where he wanted to put his bishop on the f3 square. So here I took my first think of the game, because the opening is basically over, and now it's just a question of where are we going to put our pieces, right? So I thought of many different setups here. I thought of walking my king just to g7 and then letting him decide what he was going to do. Then I thought about playing knight e6 and trying to fight on these dark squares. Then I thought about where he's going to try to put his king. I considered queen f6, preparing long castle, and also preparing this kind of g5, g4 advance, potentially. I thought for a while here, I think like 10 minutes, and I decided to play queen f6, which is a reasonable move. The computer here prefers to start by castling. This is its preferred method, and it thinks that because of the threat of the rook here, white doesn't actually have time to castle queenside, so, because I'm going to play rook e8 check, so it thinks that this forces the computer after castle. It forces my opponent to castle, and the engine evaluates the position as slightly better for black, because this is not where white's king should be placed, considering that I have a space advantage and I have some attacking ideas, and it thinks that in the long run, maybe black is actually slightly better. The move that I played, however, allows my opponent to quickly prepare a queenside castle. And here I had another thought, right? So here I was thinking of a lot of different ideas, like knight e6, knight d5, I was thinking of g5. One calculation that I had here, and this was a recurring theme toward the end of the tournament, is I calculated something and I completely misevaluated this. So here I thought, I'm going to play h3. I'm going to play h3 because I'm trying to soften up his pawn structure. He's going to play g3. Now I use the bishop here and I play f4. So now I'm threatening to compromise his pawn structure, and I calculated a line here, and I ultimately didn't go for this because I thought takes, 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 queen e4 takes, and I wasn't sure I was much better. I just thought this position was equal, and I traded too many pieces. I mean, this is completely idiotic. This position is obviously slightly better for black. White has a bad pawn on f2, potential long-term weakness. I'm just going to play f5. I'm going to play king f7, king f6. I'm going to bring my knight. I'm going to bring my rook. In the previous tournament, the IM Norm round robin that I played, I would have went for this position probably immediately. And I mean, I saw this line. I thought it was like a little bit too drawish, too dry. And I thought, I don't want to trade that many pieces, so I'm just going to play knight to d5. The idea of knight to d5 is to put some pressure, and if he trades with me and plays something like queen b3, for example, here it took a look at f4, just basically sacrificing these pawns, opening up his king, creating some sort of attack, and I really liked my position, and he just ignored me. And you'll notice that at this point, it's taken me about 10 minutes each move to make a decision, and it's taken him 2 to 5 minutes. So this guy is playing pretty fast. I'm getting kind of nowhere in the opening. I didn't want to trade because then it's like actually heading towards it, or like opposite colored bishops. He's just going to trade some pawns in the center. And, I went here, and he played king b1, like pretty easy move. I went rook e8. He took his bishop back to its home square because he didn't want it to be captured. And I went b5, which is the best move, preventing c4, preventing a couple of things like rook b8, etc. And again, he just kind of, he didn't even think. I mean, he just instantly played pawn to g3. And all of a sudden, like, maybe I'm in trouble, because if I play, for example, king g7, pawn takes, and queen takes, I mean, I thought he just starts creating some sort of attack over here. And I was actually I felt very unpleasant. So I closed the position again after spending some more time. And I mean, every move, look at this. He's just on 111 for like 5 moves in a row. I mean, he just played every move super fast. So what happened here is he played rook to e1. And I sat there thinking for a minute or two. And technically he did something. This is very, very technical, but you're supposed to offer a draw as you make the move. You cannot sit there for a few minutes, look at your opponent, and then just, offer a draw if you notice you blundered something or you decide you want to draw. So he played rook e1, he said, I offer a draw. Like, in 2 to 3 minutes, he said, I offer a draw. So by that point, I already went down to about, 28, 29 minutes on the clock. And I'm looking at the clock. I'm down 40 minutes. And I have no idea what my plan is here, like, at all. There is a plan to play bishop f8, bishop g7. I didn't understand what I was going to accomplish with this move. Maybe also to move my knight. Like, I can play bishop, I can then move my knight because my queen is protecting my pawn. Another idea I had was rook b8, but like, if rook b8, I mean, I didn't think I was ever going to succeed here. He can always play c4, c5, d5. So I just took the draw. And I really hated to do so, but I actually did not fully trust that I would keep myself together down this much on the clock with a pretty unclear plan of action. Like, this is a game that would have taken a large amount of finesse and a good amount of nervous system to hold together. Like, I needed to make the push into his position at the right moment. And yeah, I just decided, like, look, I would absolutely be devastated if I lost this game. Of course, it's a huge elo loss to lose to 2050, who's clearly not 2050. The guy's like, obviously, I would say 2200 minimum FIDE strength, just looking at his previous games. Just the old mysterious Ukrainian man, kind of like some sort of sensei. And I said, like, whatever, I'm going to make a draw. I'm going to save my energy for the last round. And so here came the last round. And I think in this journey, this is by far the most painful game. It's the game that has hurt the most. It's actually the game that hurt the most, even though I lost the game that cost me a GM norm. This game is by far worse. And you will see why. And this is a game that really kind of showed me, yeah, I need a break. Oh, my wife woke up. I'm going to write her a message. Okay, so in the last round, I was playing Robert Schlechtenko. Now, Robert and I played on this channel previously, I think in 2022. I played c4, he played e5. I played a completely idiotic game in the midst of one of my other worst tournaments. Robert is very lucky. Robert has faced me in 2 tournaments that have been my worst tournaments of my life. One day I will play Robert when I'm in good form, and hopefully I will at least get a draw. So I played c4, he played e5 again. I was really hoping he would play e5 because I had some prep ready. I have had some prep in c4, e5 ready to go for 2 tournaments. I haven't had an opportunity to show it, and this was the game where I was going to show it. So I played g3, and I had a feeling he was going to go for this early c6 line, trying to play d5. These lines are very, very sharp, very complicated. There's some lines where, you put the knight on f3, then you jump to the center with knight d4. There's also this line, which forces black to come forward, and then you play bishop g2. d5. I played this move a3. The point of a3 is that black can now not play bishop to b4, which is very useful when you put the knight here, putting some pressure on the center. I had some very interesting ideas here, and I got to showcase them by playing this move f3. And generally, that is not what you try to do, but this is a very unique type of system where black has to be a bit careful to equalize, and a bit careful to know the lines. So pawn takes, knight takes, and already here, Robert made an inaccuracy because he wasn't particularly familiar with this line. So I was, again, mentality for this game after making the morning draw was like, let's end the tournament with a win, because then at least we can prove to ourselves we beat two pretty strong young players. Like we beat Liam. Robert is 20, so he's not like that young. I think he's 20. He's not like that young, but he's a good player. He beat us before. Me, not you guys. You guys are like that rating minus 2,000. But yeah, I was trying to get some sort of revenge. And it would have been nice because, it shows that I had a bad tournament, but I'm still capable of bouncing back. So he went bishop d6. The bishop is supposed to go in e7. And when he played bishop d6, I was trying to think, like, obviously this is a reasonable move, but I think it's bad because the queen no longer defends the center. I mean, that's sort of like what I got out of this. So I castled, he castled, and the plan, whether the bishop is on e7 or on d6, the plan, which is why you open up the f-file to begin with, is to play knight h4. So knight to h4, and in many lines you play knight f5, and the knight pressures the position. It goes for the bishop. It generally pressures the bishop on e7, but and also you open up here, right? So when the bishop is on e7, this pressure is slightly less meaningful because the queen is defending, but now it is quite meaningful, and already I liked my position a lot, and as you can see, so did the engine. So I knew right away, like, something didn't go quite right here. He played bishop to e6, and here I had my first decently long thought, because I liked a couple of different approaches here. First of all, I liked the very simple knight f5. I mean, this is a move you can play in 2 seconds. But I was really trying to understand the difference between where the bishop is, and because the bishop is on d6, I also really wanted to play queen b3. Because now I'm threatening to take on d5, which is not something that I'm threatening to do when the bishop is on e7. So I was like, queen b3 looks really reasonable. And I thought, like, dc, queen b7, he can, like, maybe try to trap my queen somehow. Like, he can try to, but I don't think it's possible. I mean, he cannot play knight d7 because actually I can take this pawn. So I didn't, but I couldn't calculate anything. Like, I just couldn't. I was like, is he going to go queen d7? Like, where's he going to, I mean, queen b3 looked very decent. Maybe his plan was knight bd7, queen b7, rook c8, try to give up like a pawn, try to take back on c4. I don't know. I don't know what his plan was here. So most of the time I spent here was debating between playing queen b3, knight f5, and also playing queen b3, knight f5, but first taking here. And then last but not least, another thing that I thought of was c5, bishop c7, and I was just trying to think, like, where is he ever going to develop his pieces? Like, his knight will come to d7, but I felt he was quite restricted here. Okay, after spending way too much time, again, 18 minutes to play knight f5 is pathetic. I mean, it's just pathetic. Like, I don't even know where the time went. This was a, it's so dark in here. Hello, I'm here. Hello, light. No, terrible. Yeah, I don't know where the time went, but okay, knight to f5, and he went bishop to c7, and he is now losing the game on move 12. And this is one of the most, this is painful moment number 1 in this game. Painful moment number 1. So with all this stuff, with the bishop pointing this way, with the knight pointing here, with the rook on the open file, the first thing you think about is sacrificing. He takes bishop h6. So I threaten the rook. If the rook moves, I have bishop g5, right? Hitting the knight. He's going to go knight d7. Okay, the board is doing some idiotic stuff. I don't know why chess.com enjoys breaking. I spoiled it, but okay, whatever. You would have known by the end anyway, and probably you have already seen the game. Don't worry about it, though. So let me show you what went through my head. So, of course, you look at all those sacrifices. For whatever reason, I decided knight takes h6 was a bad move. Then I had another thought here, which is queen d2. And the amazing idea behind queen to d2 is that I'm threatening knight takes g7. And like, let's say d takes c4, knight g7, king g7, queen h6 is completely crushing. At the very minimum, I have rook f6, and also I have queen g5 check first, and then rook f6, and then rook h6. So queen d2 was a very interesting idea. I also wanted to play cd, cd, and then queen d2. And here, I mean, I just thought his position was horrendous. Like but I didn't go for this because I calculated knight bd7, knight g7, king g7, queen h6, king g8, bishop g5, and I thought this doesn't work because he has knight to g4. And what I had completely overlooked was that after bishop d8, knight takes, bishop c7, I win a piece. I had forgotten that when I played knight to f5, his bishop had moved, and so at the end of the sequence, what I was calculating, the whole line, his bishop was here in my mind. So I forgot that the bishop was on c7, and so when I'm taking the queen, I'm also taking the bishop at the end. So just a complete miscalculation. But even on top of that, the craziest thing about this position is I can sacrifice, I think, literally, I can sacrifice either piece. I can even play bishop takes h6, because if he plays gh, now I play queen d2 with the threat of queen h6. If he takes on f5, I have a completely crushing attack because I'm bringing my second rook. This is here. I mean, and I'm just basically like, I'm dominating here because his center is falling apart. Like if dc queen h6 is crushing, if king g7, for example, I can play rook f1, he needs to defend his knight. If he plays knight bd7, now I just start shredding open the center of the board. So I can sacrifice either piece basically on either square. Now, the first thing that I did was c takes d5. I played c takes d5 because I never wanted him to have counterplay. Now this is an even more absurd moment. Now I can play bishop takes h6. I can play knight takes h6. I can play queen d2 setting up knight g7. And can I play knight g7? No. Knight g7 I cannot play right away because he's going to be in time with the rook. But I can take on h6 with either piece, and I can also play queen d2, preparing knight g7, and all these moves are basically winning for white. I mean, winning is a strong statement, but it forces him to play extremely passive defense for the rest of the game. It's unbelievable that I sat here for 10-15 minutes. I even vaguely knew about these ideas because I remember there was a game by this young Polish grandmaster Gumelars who won a really nice game, sacrificing a bunch of pieces on that side of the board. And I went queen b3. I spent some time here, and I basically went in the complete opposite direction to put pressure on his position. And again, it was purely a lack of confidence, a lack of feel. It hasn't worked out. It's not going to work out. You're miscalculating. And here's where it gets even worse. So queen b3. Now, my original idea was he's going to play bishop b6, and I'm going to go knight a4. What I had missed here, which is actually a really disgusting idea, is that he can take on f5, removing the defender here, and after knight b6, and I'm going to take back on f5, he has bishop c2, which is really quite a move. So he forces me to take. Now he goes here, and he has permanent pressure on my center. Neither one of us saw this. He went knight c6 and knight b6, and this is where this was pretty brutal. He took on b6 with the pawn, and he offered me a draw because he had just played his 15th move. So the rule of the tournament is you have to play 15 moves before you make a draw. I made a draw in the morning very quickly. Right? Made a draw in the morning very quickly. I knew people were going to criticize it. I knew the fans watching are like, oh my God, he's such a quitter. And yeah, you know, for better or for worse, when you are broadcasting your games and your coach is commentating them and you have, you know, 150, 200,000 live viewers on these streams, not at the same time, but in general, you do think about like, you know, I'm going to these tournaments and there is no peace for me. And I thought about just taking the draw, but I was like, Robert is having a good tournament. He has 5 points. He lost that morning, but why is he offering me a draw? He must not like his position. Now, I saw a line here, which I rejected once again. I calculated knight takes h6, which is the best move. G takes h6, bishop g5. Now the idea here is not actually to take the rook, it's actually to come back and go for the knight, because the knight can't go anywhere. The knight would be free because it would be pinned, and it's very hard for him to move here. He cannot make a move because the knight needs protection. So what I looked at is that the knight would go somewhere, let's say knight g4, and I just didn't think a position like this was particularly great for me. It is. And against knight e4, I completely forgot that I can play rook d1, which simultaneously defends this pawn, and also, if bishop takes, pawn takes would have attacked my pawn, but guess what? Rook d1 prepares bishop e4 takes and d5. So the rook is not just playing defense, it's pushing the pawn forward. I didn't see that detail. I just thought, why would I sacrifice? I don't see a clear resolution. So multiple moves in a row with multiple concepts, I rejected the sacrifice, even though every single time it worked. And instead, I rejected his draw offer, and I did something so idiotic here. I wanted to play queen e3. The idea of queen e3 is, again, to sacrifice on g7. So what I calculated was bishop takes, rook e8, queen d3. This is what I saw in my head. Then I was like, wait a minute, that's really dumb. Why would I go queen e3 if he's just going to take my knight? Why not just play queen d3? Because now he doesn't, now there's no threat. Now there's no threat. He doesn't have to take the knight anymore. So I reject his draw offer, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to make some slow improving moves, and then I'm going to figure out how to outplay him. And I'm completely lost 3 moves later. You see, when he played knight e4, my original intention was to play rook f4. This was my point. I wanted to play rook f4, which put some pressure. I ultimately rejected rook f4 because I didn't know how to meet queen f6, which simultaneously hits my knight and also the pawn on d4. And, you know, if I take his knight, the center is going to shred open. Queen f5, rook f5, knight d4. He's going to win the pawn here, but it's still very tricky. And I rejected rook f4 because of queen f6. So instead of playing rook f4, which would have been equal, I played bishop e3. And he attacked my knight. And he went here. And here's perhaps the final, like, nail in the coffin. I didn't actually realize how bad the position was here. So I captured his knight and offered him a draw back. Because I was like, oh, we're just going to trade everything. And I'm going to, you know, I'm going to put the bishop on e5. Or maybe bishop f4, rook c7, rook c1, rook c7. Like and then I defended my pawn and he played h5. And I was like, I'm losing. It didn't fully sink in how bad the position had become. I thought, okay, like, I declined his draw. I realized I don't have much. Okay, let's just make a draw. Suddenly I'm like, wait a minute. I'm just lost. I'm lost because his blockade in the center is so powerful, and my king is so weak because of the blockade. I can't use any pieces to defend my king. And if I take, it's actually doing more harm than good, because now he just gets a sniper and he gets the open e-file. And then, okay, the game continues for a few moves. I just lose. Very nice idea here at the end, bishop g2. If I take, queen g4, king h1, rook takes. Here, he has queen e2, and then he just brings his rook, and the game is over. So bishop g2, I just resigned, and I mean, yeah, a game like this is brutal. Like, I got my prep on the board on move 12. He misplayed the prep to such a horrendous degree. Not insulting him, I'm just saying, like, sometimes you misplay a position and it's fatal. And here, it's fatal. If I literally if I gamble, I can just 50-50, pull a card and just sack one of the pieces. And if not, I can play queen d2, threatening knight g7. I calculated all these lines, completely misevaluated all of them, and stopped myself from doing it. I did the same thing against Samrug in round 6, where I saw multiple versions of lines. I did it against Barbosa, where I saw a line. I just didn't play it at all. And yeah, I lost this game. I finished the tournament with 2 out of 9. And back in the day, I would make these videos like really sad from tournaments, just like, oh, like so negative and whatever. It's not how I feel this time around, but I am shocked. I am really shocked. And I went into this tournament fresh off of Italy, thinking, okay, I don't have to travel. I'm not going to be jet lagged. I'm going to be in good spirits. I'm going to be at home. Excuse me. I was completely sure I was going to do well in this tournament. My goal was 6 points. I lost the first game. Wasn't great. Got outplayed. The second game, I lost from a better position against Chirilov. And maybe that just like set it off. Like maybe, and then I ran into, in the fourth round, I ran into my friend Kyron, who got 7 out of 9. Like, he was just a buzzsaw. I mean, there was nothing, maybe there was just nothing to be done. And I started half out of 4, and by then my confidence was gone. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. That was my friend's theory. Maybe not. Maybe there's nothing to be done. Maybe the next tournament is just going to be better. Like maybe that's just how it goes sometimes. You start badly and you just feel there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. I mean, you're going to show up to the board and you're just going to lose. There's like nothing. That's not how I felt. That is not how I felt, but it kept happening. So I think I've lost like 25 elo in this tournament. And I will reiterate, the journey to Grandmaster was never going to be linear. It wasn't going to be I play a tournament, I gain a rating every single time. It was never going to be that. So if any of you thought that, you're either kids or delusional adults or delusional kids. It's going to be a long journey. There's going to be ups and downs. You have a bad tournament, you bounce back, you have a good one, etc. Just like any sport. I will be taking my training a bit more robustly, a bit more seriously. But I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a break from competition until the Pia Kramling match. And even that match is, 4 games of classical, 6 rapid, 12 blitz. It's kind of all over the place. More details to come. And then I have nothing planned for the rest of the year. Maybe a tournament in November, but I need to work on my chess, and I think I need a vacation, just like in general. I might be burnt out, and I might just not even be feeling it, really, until I get to those 3-4 hour chess games, and I'm, like, completely fried. So, we took 2 steps forward. We stood there, still, in Italy. Now we took a big step back. We basically wiped all the rating gains of the second tournament, but hopefully there's stuff to learn from this, and I gotta do better. I gotta do a better job training. I gotta do a better job preparing. I gotta do a better job managing my schedule. And I gotta do a better job at the tournaments. So I think that's all I have. And other cool updates that are coming for Chesley. Got some major updates coming for Chesley. And I'm in Paris for the Speed Chess Championship, so I'm going to be interviewing Magnus, Hikaru, Ali Reza, and Hans Niemann. I will be posting those interviews here. Tune in. The action should start around 1 to 3 p.m. every single day, local time, so something like that. Check the chess.com website. That's all. I'll see you in the next video. Get out of here.